Today we're talking about the second part in Lucio Fulci's Gates of Hell trilogy. Just a year after the first came out, City of the Living Dead, we got The Beyond from 1981. Hello everyone, welcome again to the Cobwebs channel. My name is Daniel, coming to you live from one of the 7 gateways of hell. Don't worry, I keep it locked most of the time. And I'm so excited to talk to you about The Beyond, what might be the ultimate Italian horror film, definitely one of my favorites. Yes, some might say it doesn't make a lot of sense, it's just nightmare dream logic. In fact, there are reports that there actually wasn't a shooting script for this film, just a 3-page outline, and Fulci made up a lot as he went. I don't think that's actually true because star Catriona MacColl talks about how she read the script initially and didn't like it, but did the movie anyway. That makes more sense to me, but it's probably also true that Fulci made up a lot as he went. But even though most would say this movie is just an excuse to have a lot of gory scenes, we here at the Cobwebs channel, we like to discuss plot, we like to take these old crazy movies seriously, so let's dig into everything about The Beyond.
Just take my word for it. Go back to where you came from and hurry. Leave this place. I couldn't do that if I wanted to.
We kick off with a flashback from 1927 during a dark and stormy night. And in order to communicate that this takes place a long time ago, they've got the sepia brown tone to it. And here a bunch of angry dudes ride their boat up to the Seven Doors Hotel deep in the swamps of New Orleans. They capture an artist there named Shvek, who they call an ungodly warlock. And in the background, while they're dragging him away, he describes this hotel as being built on one of the 7 gateways of hell.
Because this hotel was built over one of the 7 doors of evil.
Then we get a scene that some might say is just gore for gore's sake, where they take this guy, this warlock, Shvek, they crucify him basically onto a stone wall and pour acid on him. We're gonna let this brew for a little bit, so we're gonna set that over there. But yeah, it just looks like this paste that just gets globbed onto him, and it absolutely melts his face. And it's a very cool gore effect, and some banger music hits at this moment. Music by Fabio Frizzi, who also did the music for City of the Living Dead. By the way, we just reviewed that on the channel recently, so if you're just finding this one, there is a review for City of the Living Dead right now. And the music that he makes for Fulci films is absolutely incredible. And The Beyond, I mean, it's hard to beat his score for City of the Living Dead, but The Beyond might just do it. Before his fate, he warns them that if they do this, it will open a gateway to hell and evil will invade the world. Glad that's never happened in the real world before. We don't get a great understanding of exactly how this works. We learn that Shvek was a guardian who was guarding this gateway to hell in this hotel, and when they kill him, somehow it opens the gateway. The rules are not explained, but do we really need that? It's our inciting incident for horrific, supernatural, unexplainable evil to invade the world. And this is what connects it to City of the Living Dead. It's why this is part of the Gates of Hell trilogy. They're both about gateways to hell being opened and unexplainable supernatural evil unleashing as a result. We then cut to present day 1980s New Orleans, and we meet our star of the film, Catriona MacColl, as Liza. Yes, she was the star of City of the Living Dead. She's going to be the star in the 3rd film in the series, House by the Cemetery. Always as different characters, but man, it's almost like this one person is going through these reincarnated lives and being, or alternate dimensions or something, and being encountered by a gate of hell opening every single time. That, or Fulci just really wanted to cast her. Actually, technically, he wanted to cast Tina Farrow in this role, who was the star of Zombie Flesh Eaters, his film from 1979. But she had already retired from acting by this point, so he brought in his star of his last film, Catriona MacColl, and she actually says this was her favorite of all the movies she did with Fulci. When you hear her talk about it, whether on the commentary track on the Blu-ray or interview, she actually seems like she has very favorable memories of this movie. She actually has some respect for some of the artistry. She in general isn't a big fan of horror films for sure, but it's nice to hear her respect for this one. And she always tells this story where when she found out it was a movie about a haunted hotel, she said, okay, so we're making like a riff on The Shining. I think she actually used the word rip off, but let's say riff, a riff on The Shining. And everyone on set, all the Italians working on it, claimed they never heard of The Shining. she didn't believe them. But maybe they were telling the truth and she gave them an idea, because they then directly ripped off The Shining for the poster for the next film, The House by the Cemetery. The story with Liza is she is from New York and comes to New Orleans because she inherited the Seven Doors Hotel. And though she could never really make it in New York, she sees this as her last opportunity for success.
This is my last chance. Either I run this hotel, or I go on relief.
Catriona MacColl also said this was her favorite of all the characters she played in these Fulci films. And when I thought about it, I thought, is she really the best character? But the truth is, she got really good characters to play in every single one. I think my favorite would have to be in The City of the Living Dead, because I like that she's this psychic medium on this quest to go close the gate. She's a little less proactive in this movie for sure, but I can see why she relates to her, because she's a character who is just really wants success. She's desperately going after it all on her own. Kind of reminds you of Catriona MacColl herself, who really wanted to be a successful actress, had a few scattered shots, but never got the big success she really wanted. And here in these Fulci films is where she discovered true longevity, and that people still remember and love her based off of these gruesome horror movies. In the process of restoring this hotel, it turns out there's some broken pipes in the basement, so they call in Joe the Plumber. Insert political Joe the Plumber joke here. Wasn't Joe the Plumber like a big thing during, I want to say, like the John McCain campaign? I don't remember. I was a kid back then. That's about as political as this channel has ever gotten. Moving on. We also meet a couple of more characters, Martha and Arthur, who are two servants who came with the hotel. But moving on from them, following Joe down there is where we get our first moment of gruesome horror in the present day, at least after the opening, where a hand pops out of the wall and kills Joe. So it does seem like this gate is opened. I'm a little confused why it seemed like it opened in 1927. Now we're here in 1981 and things are finally happening, I guess. Or maybe it was Plumber who opened the gate and like, okay, so maybe the killing of the warlock like metaphorically opened the gate, but the wall still needs to get broken into physically. So then the plumber does that. I don't think that makes a lot of sense, but that might be what this movie's trying to communicate. But we don't have enough characters here yet. So Liza then meets Emily, a creepy blind woman with a dog who is merely standing in the road while Liza is driving. Is that making a lot of noise? That sounds kind of loud. I wonder if that was picking up on the mic. Anyway, my coffee is done brewing. But Liza wants to help out Emily, so she brings her back to her hotel. And Emily says that Liza needs to leave this hotel and never look back. But she can't explain why. Man, Liza is such a dumb horror character. I mean, if some random creepy blind woman who I just met told me I should definitely leave an entire hotel that I inherited in a giant tourist attraction like New Orleans, I would absolutely leave. I'm not staying there. That was sarcasm, by the way. Slight commentary on the fact that people are always criticizing the decisions of horror characters when none of us have actually been in any kind of situations like that. Unless, if you've ever been in a situation like in the Beyond, let me know in the comments. Time for our next moment of gruesome horror, because Martha goes down to the basement and encounters Joe's barfing corpse and a body made of oatmeal soaking in the water. Actually, we learn later that this body is only 6 years old.
He's in amazingly good shape for a corpse that's supposed to have been dead 6 years.
It looks like oatmeal.
Oatmeal!
What are you talking about? Actually, you know what? I don't know what an actual decomposed body looks like after 6 years. Don't listen to me. Next character we meet is John, the doctor. I'm just going to call him Dr. John through this because when I was in college, there was an infamous professor that everybody had an opinion about named Dr. John. So we're going to talk about Dr. John. Here he's played by David Warbeck, a kind of a good cult film actor who is in a lot of horror and exploitation adventure type movies. I by far know him the most as the heroic teacher and love interest to both Collinson twins in Twins of Evil. That is a phenomenal Hammer vampire movie from the 70s. Absolutely love that. And David Warbeck is really good in it, so it's cool that he's in two of my favorite horror films. And he was also considered to be James Bond in the 70s instead of Roger Moore. I actually think he would have been a good Bond. That's kind of a missed opportunity, but I do love Roger Moore, so things worked out the way they should have, honestly. But he does claim that for years he was paid as a backup Bond in case anything happened with Roger Moore. Don't know if that's actually true, but that is what he says. And considering how old Roger Moore got for the role by the 80s, I kind of think like, yeah, maybe you should have brought in David Warbeck. He died in 1997, actually only 2 to 3 weeks after he recorded the commentary for the Laserdisc and DVD of The Beyond, along with Catriona MacColl. You can hear that on pretty much every physical media release. It's on My Arrow Blu-ray, and it's a really fun commentary. Not the most informative, but David Warbeck, he's just having fun. He's joking around. He's kind of like playfully flirting with Catriona MacColl, you know, like in a very innocent way, because he was married for a very, very long time, up until his death. It seems like the two of them had a great time working together, which is interesting because they're both much more just serious and less charming together than MacColl was, I think, with Christopher George and City of the Living Dead. But behind the scenes, they had a blast. At the morgue, a woman and a child come to see Joe's body, and I actually used to think that this was Martha, this servant from the hotel. And when you listen to the commentary, Catriona MacColl thought the exact same thing before she was corrected, but it's not. It's Joe's wife. They just look kind of similar. So Joe's wife and kid coming to visit him. Oh, that's a fun sign. Do not entry. I love the Italians. Then the most insane thing to happen in this movie so far, there we go, happens where something makes Joe's wife scream, pass out. She falls right under a jar of acid that then tips over and falls on her face. She never wakes up. She stays unconscious. Maybe she died of fear and she was dead as soon as she hit the floor. Then she burns of acid. So much bloody acid is then coming towards Jill. This is our moment of unexplainable horror. What really happened here? No idea. What is it that scared Joe's wife? We don't know. But evil things are happening all over, just like was described in City of the Living Dead. Oh, I guess here there's a zombie coming to life. Maybe that's what she saw. We're not sure. Now Liza and the doc are on a date. There doesn't really seem to be like any chemistry here. He doesn't really seem interested in her. It feels like they're on a date because he's a handsome single guy and she's a pretty single woman who moved into town. It's like, well, this is what we're supposed to do. They go on this little date. She's eating an ice cream shake. He's drinking whiskey. I always think that's kind of funny.
Arthur and Martha are more of a hindrance than a help. But I can't fire them. They came with the hotel.
Strange. I've never heard of them.
And then after she mentions them, he realizes that he's never heard of Martha and Arthur, these people who work at the hotel who came with it, and he knows everybody in town. So there's something suspicious going on with them.
I can feel a presence. Somebody else is in here. It's him. He's here again.
Okay, who's here? I guess the warlock Shvek?
I've lived in New York all my life, and if there's one thing I've learned not to believe in, it's ghosts.
I don't really get this line either. I don't know what living in New York has to do with not believing in ghosts. I guess living in New York just means you're hard and tough, and you don't believe in it. You're no nonsense or something. But if you're in a really loud city like that, I mean, it stands to reason that there might be ghosts all around, and you just never hear them over all the sirens. Whoa, okay, crucified guy is back on the wall. Shvek, the warlock, which we know, one, because he's nailed onto the wall just like him, but then also his mouth is missing. I guess that's just a result of having acid poured on him, but he looks like paper mache. A lot of zombies in Fulci films, kind of really Italian zombie films in general, look like they just got paper mache put all over their face, and I love it. It is not a downside at all. I love the effects in these movies. Some of them are truly great, and we're actually going to talk about some. And some of them are really fake in a way that I find super charming and make them much more fun than an ultra gory movie with super realistic effects would be. I would rewatch a movie like that less. I have rewatched The Beyond many, many times. Dr. John also realizes he's never heard of Emily, so it kind of seems like there's a lot of ghosts in this movie, not just zombies. I really like how Fulci movies, particularly his Gates of Hell movies, they really merge the ghost and zombie genres together. Kind of like... Are the ghosts in my house acting up? Can you guys hear that over the... Okay, whatever. Where was I? Yeah, it's very, very cool. It just feels like the dead are rising in multiple different ways. Physically rising, some just spiritually rising, coming out of hell. For as good an idea and a vibe as it is, it's not done in the horror genre enough. Well, except in Eddie Murphy's Haunted Mansion, I guess. Liza then goes into room 237. Wait, no, Room 36, and she finds an ancient book called the Book of Eibon. Okay, I love this. Much like City of the Living Dead, this film also much centers around a ancient occult text that was referenced in the works of H.P. Lovecraft. The Book of Eibon is a fictional grimoire that was part of the Cthulhu mythos. It was actually not created by H.P. Lovecraft. It was created by Clark Ashton Smith, who was a good friend of Lovecraft. He did writings within the Cthulhu mythos. They traded writings back and forth and gave each other ideas and such. Lovecraft actually did mention it as well in some of his works. The Book of Eibon is a text on occultism about things like black magic, necromancy, demonic magic. Eibon himself was a necromancer who was gifted this book by an ancient god. And Clark Ashton Smith's short story, The Coming of the White Worm, was intended to be a chapter found within the Book of Eibon. Liza goes into a bookshop to inquire about the book, and the guy who plays this librarian actually won Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars for this film.
That book's been there for 2 years. Nobody wants to buy it. It's very nice, though. Very, very interesting.
Man, who says the Academy ignores horror? Am I right? But speaking of bookstores, libraries, now we get a scene where Martin goes into a library. By the way, Martin we haven't really referenced, but he's an architect who's working with Liza on restoring the hotel. But he wants to get some blueprints on the hotel. So he goes into this library, and the librarian is actually played by Lucio Fulci. You might not even realize it because he's dubbed with a guy using a thick southern accent.
I'm sure you'll be okay on your own. I'll be out till, I don't know, 1 or a quarter of. You feel completely at home now, you hear?
Absolutely love it. But yeah, Martin is looking for these blueprints. He climbs up a ladder, and a crash of thunder actually makes him fall to the ground. This is why you should never climb ladders during a thunderstorm. And it paralyzes him. And now we get what has got to be the most iconic scene from this film, except for maybe the ending, except for the very ending. I think this is what people remember the most, where a bunch of spiders, not just spiders, tarantulas, not just tarantulas, some real tarantulas, some very fake looking tarantulas, puppeted by strings, just kind of hopping along, all come towards him, crawl over him, and proceed to eat him alive. Now, there's actually a little bit of truth built in here where tarantulas actually do paralyze their victims. They have a venom in their hairs that they will paralyze, whatever creature they're trying to kill with. This guy wasn't actually paralyzed by the tarantulas, but I imagine their hairs crawling over him probably isn't helping his problem. And the tarantulas are biting him and ripping at his flesh and tearing him apart. And it's clear he's still alive while this is happening. This is definitely a step up from the maggot scene in City of the Living Dead. I mentioned in my last review that a lot of Italian horror films are kind of like Indiana Jones films, where there's got to be like a creepy crawly scene. There got to be bugs or rats or maggots or spiders or something, some kind of set piece involving them. And here we get it for this one. The gore effects are kind of fake looking, but also kind of awesome. And the artistry is amazing. And if you think it feels like this scene goes on for a really long time, you are 100% right, because it goes on for 3 minutes and 45 seconds, almost 4 minutes straight of watching this guy get ripped apart by spiders. You know what? I'm a little too grossed out. I'm just going to put that back. Whoa, this is cool. At the very end of the scene, the building plans disappear. There are absolutely supernatural forces that do not want him to see the building plans. I don't really know why, but they don't want him looking at them.
Very, very interesting.
Now Dr. John is breaking into supposedly Emily's house, what Liza told him was Emily's house, and he's discovering it's been abandoned for years, so he's not really believing Liza's story that Emily even exists. And he also finds the Book of Eibon. Man, this book is just popping up everywhere. It's been too long since we've got a zombie scene, so now Martha is cleaning up the hotel, and out of the dirty water in the tub rises Joe the plumber. And I love how he looks here, because his skin on his face is so grotesque, bloated, discolored, but not the rest of him. It really just looks like he put a mask on. His neck is perfectly fine. That's just it's an imperfection I find very charming. That's a running theme for me in these movies. When they're imperfect, they have these imperfections, they have fake looking effects. I don't care at all. I love them anyway. Maybe that's making you question why I'm even reviewing them in the first place, but I'm not reviewing them for perfection, okay? We're reviewing them for vibes. But here's an imperfection I really don't understand. In a gloriously gruesome way, Joe the plumber kills Martha by impaling her head on a spike. The spike comes through her eyeball and pops the eye out. I'm really trying to act this out because I don't think I can show you this in YouTube, but eyeball popping out. It's a really glorious sequence, but I don't understand it because I kind of thought Martha was a ghost. I don't know why they made such a big deal about, wow, I've never heard of them. Who are they? And I know everybody in town. So you think that they're ghosts, but he just kills her like a person. I don't really get it. Now that we got 2 gruesome kills in a row, you might think it's time for some story exposition, some character development. No, it's time for another gruesome kill. Now Emily is hanging out and she is confronted by Shvek. And her dialogue here is actually very interesting. She's saying, I did what you asked. So it does seem like she has been sent out of hell to do something for him. Not really sure what that is, other than I guess warn Liza away. Maybe he just wants Liza out of the house. He wants the house to himself. Pretty common thing with ghosts, I guess. But he is trying to kill her, and her dog saves her, which is great. You gotta love dogs in horror movies, especially when they do heroic things. Oh my gosh, now the dog is killing Emily. This is a moment that feels like it's just there for shock value. Why is it that the dog is killing her? I guess the evil that is seeping out of the gates of hell, infecting the whole world. It's also infected her dog. Or maybe her dog came out of hell too. Do any dogs go to hell? I really don't think so. All dogs go to heaven, right? But now the dog kills her, and I gotta say, I think this is the most gruesome moment in the film. I think this beats the spiders. It may not be as cool as the spiders, because the spiders thing is kind of glorious, and this is just more sad, but it is so bloody. It is so gory. It is insane. Now that we've had just 2 gruesome kills all in a row, I kind of want to address the story of the movie and why I don't think it's as strong as City of the Living Dead. That's one reason I actually do prefer City of the Living Dead, while I completely acknowledge The Beyond is the fan favorite. But I think City has a better plot. Now, the plots of both are very similar. They're both about a gate of hell opened, unexplainable, crazy horror happening all around. It's kind of an excuse to just have gory set pieces, but City of the Living Dead has this ticking clock element. You've got characters who know exactly what's happening. They are on a heroic mission to kill the priest, to close the gate before All Saints Day. It's got suspense. It's got tension. The Beyond, the characters don't really know what's going on for almost the whole movie. So you might say it feels, I don't know, you could say it feels more dread-inducing because of that, but I like that the characters are on a mission in City of the Living Dead. And in this one, they're just kind of reacting to crazy stuff, not knowing what's happening. There's a lot less suspense in this one. In fact, it's an hour and 9 minutes into the movie when Liza is officially attacked by a zombie, and now she knows beyond a shadow of a doubt, she's not just seeing things, she's not going crazy, there's zombies around. Dr. John doesn't seem to believe her, but he does reveal that he read the book of Eibon, so he has this forbidden knowledge now, which is interesting.
Very, very interesting.
And it's led him to ask her, who are you really?
Who are you really?
John, I don't understand you.
So now we're introducing the idea that perhaps Liza is not what she says she is. Perhaps she came out of hell or something. She's not a true person. He has discovered something about her. That's never addressed again, though. I don't really know why he asks her, who are you really? Because she doesn't answer, and the movie never touches that again.
What a question. Why'd you ask?
But there does seem to be a true apocalyptic situation going on in New Orleans because, by the way, they did film this in New Orleans, which is very cool. But they're out driving, and she says there's not a soul in sight, so everybody is gone. Why? But now that they're back at the morgue, we get a solid Star Trek reference.
But John,
No, Liza. I'm a doctor.
I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor.
Keep saying that. Are you a doctor, aren't you?
And then this epic shot of a hand bursting through the window and attacking her. And now Dr. John is going into action hero mode. He's got his pistol. He's shooting these zombies. The effect of every time a bullet hits the zombies is spectacular. The blood splatter every single time. Done practically, of course, and looks amazing. But it seems like Dr. John hasn't seen any George Romero movies because he doesn't know to go for the head at first, but he eventually does, and that's good. And I think it's crazy that by far the most gruesome zombie headshot we get is on Jill Zombie, the little girl, the little kid. When he shoots the little kid zombie, her head explodes. Now, I'm acting it out because I probably can't show you, but her head absolutely explodes. It is a fantastic effect sequence. Like I said, these movies, they have some cheap, really fake-looking effects, sure. They also have some amazing effects, and that one I think is really good. I mean, it looks pretty realistic. Eat your heart out, David Cronenberg and Scanners. No, I love David Cronenberg too. This zombie shootout climax in the morgue actually reminds me of a lot of The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, film from the 70s that I recently saw for the first time and fell in love with. That's a great movie too. Also, eagle-eyed viewers may notice that he is reloading the gun by putting them down the shaft. And he explains that in the commentary that he did that just as a joke to make Catriona MacColl laugh. You get a brief glimpse of her kind of laughing there just because they were joking around while making this movie. But that's the cut they use. So it's just this weird little imperfection that endears it to weird people like me. But they go downstairs to the basement of the hospital and they discover they're back at the basement of the Seven Doors Hotel.
Very, very interesting.
Kind of confusing. I can understand if you missed that a little bit, but I like that moment because it does seem like the rules of time and space and physics have been altered. Even though they're on a different part of town, they just end up right back there. And they go through a foggy hole in the wall, and the sounds that are going on in the scene are so incredibly creepy. And they end up in hell. And I gotta tell you, I have seen this movie a lot of times. I think star Catriona MacColl would be disgusted to know how many times I have watched this movie. And every time I get to this end sequence, I get chills every time. They end up in hell. Some people have said that it's purgatory. I kind of consider it to just be they end up in hell. It's a gateway to hell after all. And I love any movie that shows a scene in hell because I love to see the way filmmakers and artists depict it because it's something that's like impossible to depict. So what do you do? Their version of this is the beyond. This is another world. This is an endless landscape of nothing, of death. There are dead bodies all around that David Warbeck at least says that those were local alcoholics, that they just paid in booze to take their clothes off and lay on the ground and cover them in this gray paste. Morally questionable if that's actually what they did, but that's what he says. But the scene here is amazing. And when they're running, it's slow motion, their eyes turn white, and you know they are now one with the dead, with the beyond. And that's the end of the film. And I must say, I think this scene, this is the reason this is the fan favorite. I mean, overall, I don't think The Beyond is considerably better than City of the Living Dead. I personally prefer City of the Living Dead, but this has the better ending by like endless miles. By a landslide, this is the best. This might be the best ending of any Italian horror film ever made. So let's rate The Beyond. Now for atmosphere, I'm going to give this a 7. I do think it's a step below City of the Living Dead. It's less gothic, macabre. You don't get the graveyards and the crypts or anything like that. A lot of it takes place at a hospital, but I do actually like the hotel. That's the historic Otis House in Louisiana. So it's a real location. The morgue is decent, it's pretty good, but it's really like that ending. That's by far the best atmosphere in the film. For characters, I'm gonna go with a 6. I also think this is a step below City of the Living Dead because for as cool as I think David Warbeck is in real life, he seems like a great guy. I love that him and Catriona MacColl had so much fun making this movie. He's less fun to watch than Christopher George, for sure. He's much more serious, dead serious the entire time. I like Catriona MacColl's character for sure. I also like her better in City of the Living Dead, and most of the supporting cast is it's a little ho-hum, but you gotta love Fulci the librarian.
You feel completely at home now, you hear?
For story, I'm also gonna go with a 6. It's nothing spectacular, it's very standard, it's very much an excuse to just deliver frightening sequences, but it works well enough. I like the whole idea of a gate of hell opening. I'm always gonna be a fan of movies that are about that, and once again, the climax of the film, part of the story, absolutely amazing. But for scares, we're gonna go with a 10. This is where the movie shines. It is those horror sequences. It is the dread. It is the gore, the effects, the zombies, the ghosts, the spiders. Everything here is amazing. And that is what raises this up to cult status. Everything else is secondary. The gore, the scares, phenomenal. All in all, I'm going to give The Beyond an 8 out of 10. I love this movie. Before I close, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons. You guys are the reason that I'm able to put as much time as I do into this channel. And I want to start giving some specific shout outs. So I want to thank my oldest patrons, Matthew Bledsoe, Andy Gorham, and James Montgomery. You guys rule. That's it for this one. What do you think of The Beyond? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you want to hang out with me more, you can check out my City of the Living Dead review right over here, or some of these lists I did on horror movies based on atmosphere. That playlist is right down there. Give a like and a subscribe if you haven't yet. Thank you so much. I will see you next time.